This is Sketchbook session 100, and for the time being, this will be my last of these. I doubt that I will refrain from making these ever again, but for now, this will be the end. It's been 2 years of making these, or just about, with 52 weeks in a year. These videos, in a lot of ways, are what got me the first real audience, and I am grateful for that. But the channel has started to move in a direction where the educational content, the stuff that is focused on the psychology of artists, is just doing a little bit better. And I don't mean that in a monetary sense as much as I mean it in a there are more humans being reached by that content. Now, I am incapable of containing my rambles, so the rambles will probably just continue to show up in podcasts. And on the odd weeks where I find myself down on video content, I will probably put something together. I wouldn't be surprised if over the course of 2025, I still manage to get 5 or 10 sketchbook sessions out. I've even considered doing them as Patreon exclusive videos, but we'll see. I have mixed feelings about those kinds of things. This piece is obviously from my Inktober explorations. This one was primarily tied up in Horizon, though there were a couple other prompts in it. At the beginning here, I have this sketch going super fast because I want to get to the ink stuff, but I think it's beneficial sometimes to see what it looks like as a piece starts coming together. You'll notice I erase things, I use rulers, and I try to figure out where my perspective is functioning and not functioning correctly. I'm thinking about the things that are above that horizon line I'm going to see the underside of. There's a lot of things that are coming to mind as I'm working on this. I am an old man at heart. I was told that a lot when I was younger, and it continues to hold true. And the reason I mention it here is I like sticking with the things that I've always stuck with. This channel started largely on having a weekly sketchbook session, and so I like the idea of having that interface. For better or worse, you get to see me at my normal, at the I am just dissecting an idea and playing with it. And there is something that is intriguing about that and how that kind of comes together. But it's going to be interesting moving forward and seeing what that looks like. I have a feeling that it will still show up. Maybe I'll start finally doing live streaming, because then I can just kind of unhinged ramble about particular topics. And I'll continue to reach out to my community and figure out what all of you want to hear about, the things that are troubling you or bothering you, and probably do it in a more free-form format, probably over top of video as I tend to do. But as much as I try to divest myself of feeling like it's a new year, it's time for new goals, inevitably I find myself there. And it's not for the reasons that you might think. I don't find myself casting new goals and dreams and vision stuff because it's simply a new year. It's actually far more silly. It's the fact that I organize everything on spreadsheets and by calendars, and the calendars reset. And so having things at a clean stopping point on, December 31st and starting over on January 1st just makes everything look clean. And there's this little gremlin that lives rent-free in my head. Actually, no, it's not rent-free. I pay him a lot more than I should. And he loves the idea of starting over cleanly, having a new spreadsheet that is clean, having a new calendar or schedule that is clean. And so inevitably, I'm looking forward at 2025, and I don't think this is a bad thing. In fact, if you are an artist, whether you are working on trying to go professional or just expanding what you're doing or just growing your skill, it's a good thing to have goals for the 2025 year, for every year. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of mine for this year. I actually did my first art show with some friends. It wasn't a solo thing, in December of 2024. And it was a good experience. I made a little bit of money. I got to meet a lot of people. But for me, mostly I got to figure out if I like doing it or not. This next year might involve us moving, so I'm not sure I really want to commit to going and traveling to art shows, but I am going to start looking at actually doing more art shows. I'll be able to share some of that here on the channel as far as the setup and what that looks like, and just give you all an insight. But for me, that's going to be something I'm focusing on for this year. probably just doing 1 or 2 or 3 more of them. I don't want to go overboard, which is definitely my tendency. I like to do things full bore when I get into them, and it's not always a great idea. But I'd be curious to know if any of you have participated in art shows in the past and what they've looked like. And what they've looked like. The one that I did here was just a craft show, actually, here in our local tiny little Colorado town. And it was not really for art. You know, the average price of something selling there was probably 40 or 50 bucks. So me selling a couple paintings that were a bit more than that was kind of surprising. But it also tells me that some of the more foundational, large art shows around here, I might do a little bit better. It's good confidence boosting. I think that's one of the biggest reasons to do things like that and challenge yourself is it's always very fulfilling if somebody comes into the booth and goes, yes, I would like to pay $100 or $200 for this thing that you made. It's very vindicating. It makes you feel good, at least for a while, and it reassures you that you're not all in your head. If you struggle with imposter syndrome, it can help fight that a little bit. So yeah, I'd be curious to know if any of you have been involved in those and what your thoughts are. Continuing on with goals for 2025, I didn't manage to put together the children's book that I had intended at the end of the year. I got too tied up in Smaugust and Inktober, and then the holidays were here. So that's going to be my project for the first part of the year. I'm also working on finishing out my second novel. I am about 60% through. I am on schedule to finish that in early May, late April right now. Again, I could check the spreadsheet. It has all the information, but over the holidays, my word count dipped a little bit, so I'm not sure the math is entirely accurate. But I have, I think, 160 or 180,000 words done in this novel, and it's probably going to be close to 280,000 just the way things are shaping up. But it's been really rewarding. My writing is improving. I'm getting better at describing things. I'm becoming hopefully more humble as I move through the process. I don't have a problem asking for help or researching things, and that is a good thing. It has been constructive for me. And it's also fun to see these characters come to life that have existed in my brain for a very long time. It's a very satisfying thing. So I'm going to finish off the second one, and then as much as I know I should probably take a break, I'll probably dive right into the third and try to finish that off. I want to finish that by the end of 2025. I don't think there's any chance of that happening because it's probably going to be bigger than the last two and probably edge very close to that 300,000 word count. And so I'm going to need 300 days approximately to put that together. And that's not including days where I work on planning and outlining. But that is part of the goal, part of the plan. Artistically, I'm going to be expanding a lot of the educational content here on the channel. So I've been doing a lot of studying on pen techniques. I'm looking at some of Peter Hahn's work and Alfonso Dunn's work. I'll link both of them below. I have some of their books. I follow them on their channels as well. And just taking a look at how they teach things and how they approximate things. I find that selfishly for me, I get a lot better at a particular technique when I spend time trying to analyze how another artist teaches it, but also when I try to think about how I'm going to communicate something. If I sit down and draw something just for me, it tends to be pretty esoteric, and I tend to stick with the things that I'm comfortable with. But when I sit down to try to put something together specifically with a student in mind, whether it's in person or whether it's here on the channel, I tend to be far more specific. I tend to do research. I tend to do sketches ahead of time and make sure I'm prepped, and it comes out better. And I come out better on the other hand too. Or rather on the other side. And so there's just a lot of benefits to me and hopefully to other people, to you listening, when I spend time focusing on those educational things. It's also why in the past I've kind of pushed, if you really want to get better at art, consider finding somebody in your life who wants to also get better, but they're less skilled than you, and start teaching them. When you finally buckle down and teach a thing, you understand where your own gaps are, and you're able to better, slam some metaphorical putty in there and kind of fill in the gaps. So the channel's gonna be working on those things. There's a chance that I'm going to be working on drawing with pencil and maybe watercolor at some point, but I can't promise those, and I don't know when I would start them. For now, I'm gonna continue working on ink, probably for the next couple months. And I realized too, last night, I'm recording this on January 10th. So January 9th in the evening, I was at my writing group and I was talking to some friends, and somebody brought up, hey, is there a channel on YouTube you'd recommend for like just getting started with ink drawing? And I was like, yeah, mine. And also Alfonso Dunn, because he's fantastic and better than me. And the more I chewed on that, the more I kind of went, I don't know if I really have content that is for absolute beginner artists. And that's fine. That's just not how I started the channel. I started the channel as mostly help with creative problem solving for artists, people who are already kind of in that world. But it started me, of course, thinking about what would that look like if I was going to build an hour-long video that's just, you want to learn how to draw. I'm assuming you made it through grade school and you drew with crayons and things like that and you know how to hold a pencil. But beyond that, you have nothing and you want to learn how to draw. How would I put that video together? What would that look like? And so when I was supposed to be going to sleep, I'm slowly chewing on that and thinking about, what is this going to be? How would I put this together? All that to say, there's a good chance that I have a series coming out somewhere in the next 5 or 6 months that's going to be specifically focused on, you want to learn how to draw, you're an absolute beginner, what does that look like? So I would be I would love to hear from you if you've got ideas about that. Maybe you can go back in your mind 10, 15, 20 years and find where you started working on art and what things were really beneficial or what things you wish you had had. You know, in my mind, I go to teaching high school drawing 1 and like where I started there, but there was always some implicit assumptions about how that functioned and what they were coming to. The school I taught at required art from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade in some capacity. So when a kid hit me at 14 and they'd been in the school for a while, they had a lot of art. They knew about color mixing. They knew about perspective. They knew about shading. So it's an interesting thing for me to go in my brain and try to figure out, how would you start if the person coming to you had nothing? And what would the goal be? The goal is not necessarily going to be the same for everyone. So is the goal to be able to draw from reference, draw from life, draw from imagination? These are all very different things. And I'm not sure you can do one thing that hits all of them. But again, I haven't given it a ton of thought. I'm going to have to go back in my brain and in some of my documentation to what my lesson plans look like, how I built curriculum, and try to figure out if I can adapt that in a way that's really beneficial for other people. So that's another thing that will probably be coming down the pipeline at some point. For me personally, I'm moving a little bit away from oil paint and starting to work a little bit more heavily on acrylic because it just works better for my structure of working. What I mean is, I tend to be fairly ADHD with my painting. I will start on a piece and I might work really hard on it for 2 or 3 days and then come back to it 7 or 10 days later. With oil paint, I lose so much of the viscosity and malleability of the paint in that time, and it becomes pretty frustrating. And with acrylic paint, it dries so quickly that I can work on it in these quick spurts and it's not nearly as frustrating. I don't like that the colors are not nearly as vibrant. It doesn't have that glossy feel. So I've started varnishing over the top of my pieces and it gives a good aesthetic. It looks nice. I enjoy it. I've sold a couple of the pieces that work that way. So it's a cool thing. In addition, I'm either going to like get an Etsy shop or something similar, or my own website, so that I can actually like sell the pieces and prints from things I put together. I would just like to have an option of doing that, especially if it's something that I can kind of set up and just have them here. And if somebody buys something once a week, once every other week, and just like, oh, cool, that's $50 and I can send something off. We'll see. I would like to do that. I wanted to do that last year, but I kind of got tied up in other things. So mostly as I start to build this, my artistic ventures and journey and a little bit of art business, I want to try to figure out like what are some other ways that I can bring in a little bit of income to justify the time that I'm putting into it, and to kind of spread out a bit. I'm not obsessed with making money. I don't talk about money much on the channel, but it seems logical to me that if I am able to get some money for the things that I'm doing and help people and give people beautiful things, there seems to be a good intersection there. And we'll see what expands as far as the educational content as well. I've looked into other platforms a little bit, and I might do some more of that in this coming year, trying to figure out what is the best way to serve the artistic community and what do I have to offer that is a little bit different than what somebody else is bringing to the table. In addition, I just want to make a lot more things. I've got a couple sketchbooks I want to finish out. I'd love to keep working on that world building sketchbook and get that thing finished. It's a lot of work and a lot of thought to do, but it's really rewarding. And it's gotten some good feedback here on the channel, which is lovely. Some of the best comments that I get are when people start, just letting me know how much they enjoyed something, like the fact that it made their day better, the fact that it inspired them to make something of their own. Those kind of things are really lovely. I really enjoy getting those kind of comments. I don't mind, obviously, any of the comments. People are really kind here. I get really good, interesting questions and feedback. I try to respond to everything. It's pretty rare that I don't get a chance to respond to something. But yeah, we are in the rambles. It's not quite the normal rambles of a sketchbook session, but this has kind of turned into an update and like, this is where the channel's going. What's happening here? What's happening with me? And I think it's primarily happening because this is the final sketchbook session for a while. And me being a nostalgic weirdo is just like, oh, this is making me ruminate on things and think about stuff. So here I am in my studio, which I've torn apart in the last couple of days. There's a heater running in the other room because it's like 9 degrees outside, Fahrenheit for all of my non-American folk. If it's in Celsius, I don't remember exactly what that is. It's probably like -11, -13, something like that. The snow is slowly starting to melt outside, but it is bitter cold. It's been very cold the last couple of days. So I'm sitting inside recording this in early January and excited about the next year and trepidatious as per usual. I'm not one of those people who can feel excitement without also feeling some level of fear about what's coming down the line, down the whatever. I'm also bad with phrases. I don't know if you've ever noticed in my videos. My wife laughs about it. I hit, I think, like 25 or 30, and all of my like phrases and metaphors, like coming down the pipeline or, whatnot, they've all merged. And so I've got all these weird, like random versions of phrases that sometimes don't make sense, sometimes use the wrong words. And when I'm talking about them here on the channel, especially when I'm off script like I am right now, there's always a chance that it just goes south. And so sometimes I'll just go with it and say it and know it's not quite right, and people hopefully will understand what I'm saying. But yeah, this has kind of just ended up being an update of this is where things are, this is where things are going. As always, though, everything I make here is for you who are listening. So if there's anything that I've missed or I've not talked about that you'd like to hear about, let me know. If there's something really special about the sketchbook sessions that you're gonna miss, let me know, and I can try hopefully to weave some more of them in. I've already had a comment or two here and there about people who are gonna miss my rambles, which is funny because then I get comments about people not liking the rambles, but that's just how it goes here on YouTube. I think people are very free to comment, and when a video gets 500 views and I have one comment that says something, I struggle with interpreting that. Does that person speak for the other 500? Well, no, of course they can't. But there are people who probably, had similar views and didn't say things. So it's just this interesting mind game. It's a really intriguing thing, being on social media and seeing this tiny little interface of what's going on out there. So the last thing is, if you're still here, which I don't know how many of you will still be here, but if you have not considered starting your own YouTube channel, I would highly recommend that you do so in 2025. Maybe just commit to making videos for this year, maybe just one a month. I started off at one a week, but I have a lot more free time than a lot of people. But if you could do one a month even throughout the year, it would probably be a good thing for you. As an artist, it forces you to dabble in other media. Sometimes that's just the editing software, learning how to do stuff with audio, thinking about scripts or what you want to say, explaining what you're working on. All of these things are good skills for an artist, whether you're trying to make any money doing it, work as a professional, or even just doing it for yourself. There's always a chance, in fact, not just a chance, there is 100% a group of people out there who are just like you, and it would be empowering for them to hear about what you're doing. So if you come into that and you're like, I'm 18 years old, I want to be a professional artist, I'm starting to work on things, there's a sense of accountability, there's a sense of camaraderie being alongside other people who are trying to do the same thing. It's not probably going to have any detrimental impact on you to do this. Sometimes people are unkind, mute them and block them and ignore them. They are the loud voices, they don't matter. But most of the time, it's going to be a little bit of exposure, it's going to be a lot of accountability, and it's going to be a permanent record of things you've done. I think sometimes about the fact that if something terrible happens to me, that my daughter and my wife will have access to hundreds of hours of me talking about existence and life and my thoughts on things just because of this channel. And although I'm not planning for something bad to happen to me, if it did, it's nice to know that that exists. It's nice to know that my book exists, that my daughter would have something substantial to worm her way through and remind her of me. Now, you don't have to go that direction with things, but the reality is that it exists here on this platform, maybe not indefinitely, we don't know what the future holds, but for a time, there will be a record of you and what you have done. And that's important. And you also never know if a video is just going to get picked up and do really well. Obviously, like on the financial side, that could be really beneficial. But more than that, you don't know if your video is going to hit somebody in the way where it is the exact thing they need to hear that day. It is the thing that encourages them to keep making. It is the thing that justifies their processes, how they think about things. It counters a negative comment from their dad or from their aunt or grandma or something that was just putting them down over the holidays. You don't know how your positivity, how your creativity that you put out into the ether is going to affect another human. Now, I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to say you owe it to them, because you have to value yourself, your time, and your mental health probably above taking care of other people, because if you don't, then eventually you'll go kaput and you can't take care of anyone. But after you've made sure you take care of you and take care of yourself, then it's not a bad thing to think about putting some good out into the world. Something that might just be a benefit to someone else. That might be a cookie at the end of their day, or the person who, waves somebody on or lets somebody merge in traffic. They didn't need to do that, but they did, and it was kind. The person that lets you cut in line because you've only got 2 or 3 items and they've got a whole cart full of groceries. You never know when that good thing is going to be the thing that just makes somebody's day tolerable. And I think for most of us, getting our art out there, sharing the beautiful, funny, goofy things that we have, the stories, the anecdotes, if you're putting positivity out there, it's going to benefit people. I think also it will benefit you. And I think a little bit of selfishness is not a bad thing. This is a situation where your life will be better because you're focusing on the positive things. So much of our mood is controlled by our perspective. Not entirely, but a lot of it certainly does overlap. And so if you are able to focus on the positive, inject that positivity out into social media, hopefully you're helping cover over some of the junk, because there's a lot of junk out there. But if you've considered it, I would highly encourage you to start a YouTube channel this year. I would highly encourage you to post material on social media. Just don't look for validation there. Don't look for positive feedback. Don't post, with the intention of getting good feedback, because if you are posting on Instagram hoping and desperately needing people to like your stuff, or you feel worse about it, you're not in the right headspace to do it. And that's not what it's for. But if you are drawing something and it makes you happy and you share it and you're happy to share it, that's a good place to be. And if you are that person who needs that validation, is seeking that validation, I would highly encourage you to look inward, to try to figure out what it is that's doing that and work on that piece of yourself. I think I do have a podcast here at some point about artists seeking validation. I would highly encourage you to go check that out and look at it. I'll link it below as well. But being an artist, being a creative is hard. And if you focus on the positive things, if you focus on the good things, it will help you in your perspective. It will help you feel better about the world, where things are, how you're progressing, how things are functioning. And we need that. Life is hard generally, and it seems to be harder by default for artists. Well, thank you for listening to my rambles. This has been very different than normal, but I can't help but be oddly nostalgic when it's the 100th of a thing and when it seems to be the last one of them for a time. I'm already in my brain, like, telling myself, like, there's no way this will be the last one, but it'll be the last scheduled one for a while. I'm going to start, episode 101 will come out at some point. It will come out probably in a different fashion, maybe be longer, maybe be a video I keep in the back pocket for when I get sick and I can't record a podcast or something like that. But thank you for enduring me. Thank you for being here. And thank you to all of you who've watched over the course of the last 2 years, who've invested in this. Thank you to my patrons. It's been wonderful just to get the support, the encouragement, to know that what I'm doing here is just making people's lives better. So thank you to all of my patrons. It's been wonderful to have you on board and to know that this is something that makes your lives better. Thank you to my Discord community who just post goofy, funny things every single day. I get to see your artwork. You get to see my artwork. It's been wonderful. If you want to check out that community, it's linked down below. It's totally free. Like there's no strings attached there. It's simply a community of about 300 people that just exist online and can share artwork and talk to one another about what's going on in your artistic lives and share goofy things and rant and ramble about all the stuff that affects us artists that, your parents and siblings don't quite understand because they're just standard people, right? But thank you all. This is it's a privilege to be here and to be able to help and provide some, small piece of what makes your day tolerable. So thank you for that. Well, have a good one, y'all. See you soon.